What if an empty chair was the key to you finally healing, letting go of the past, letting go of relationships that no longer serve you, letting go of patterns that have been keeping you blocked from attracting more abundance, attracting more love into your life? And what if this is the key to you really experiencing a shift to a new version of yourself? Because for a long time, I would find myself making little shifts inside of myself, but ultimately falling back into old patterns. Or I would find myself attracting people into my life that I knew represented a certain energy that was unhealed from the past, yet I would continue to attract it. Sure, the faces would change, but the energy would remain the same. This happens for a lot when people attract narcissistic people into their lives. They're like, why am I a magnet for narcissists? So they attract it, and then maybe finally it doesn't work out, or they establish boundaries or whatever, which really, if they establish boundaries, they would probably stop attracting that kind of energy if they really in their energetic field said no to it. However, that person may leave, and then they attract someone else that has similar traits. Because somewhere down the line, there was a tolerated, normalized energy of a certain pattern that, until it's made aware of, continues to play itself out. Now, this empty chair right here, I sat in last night. I did sit in that chair last night, the other chair that I used as a part of this type of practice, this therapy practice that I learned. And let me say, I'm not a therapist. This is a video where I'm sharing with you what worked for me in an extremely powerful way. It actually blew me away how powerful this process was. And I stumbled across it because last night I've been really fascinated with Alfred Adler, Adlerian psychology, who's an Austrian therapist from back in the early 1900s that talks a lot about the different, basically how to heal and what our childhood is. He believed in something that has to do with teleology instead of etiology, which means that the past does not equal the future, like most of what psychoanalytics talks about. But then I stumbled across this video on what is called Gestalt therapy, which is a German therapy, German practice. And Gestalt is a German word that the closest translation to means to make whole. So what if a lot of the people and the circumstances and the situations we are attracting in our life is because at a certain point in our past, there was some block in the cycle of learning, and we are attracting people into our lives to help us learn certain things, to close the loop. It's like that one conversation you're avoiding over and over again with someone, and then it just keeps presenting itself. But until you have the conversation, until you learn the lesson, you will continue to attract people to reflect that back to you because it hasn't been made whole yet. There is a kind of like a break in the cycle. So when I was watching this video from the Alfred Adler videos I was watching, then Gestalt therapy came on, and I was fascinated. Something intuitively told me to watch this. And it had to do with understanding basically psychology. But there was this one idea of the empty chair, which it's kind of known for. And the idea, and what I ended up doing last night, I'll share with you why this was a huge shift for me, because last night what I did is I literally pulled out that chair. I had that chair right there, and then I pulled out this other chair, and I imagined that there were certain people from my past that were sitting in that chair. I imagined what they'd be wearing, what they look like. And then what I did is I had a dialogue where I expressed to each of these individual people how I felt, certain things in the past that I withheld saying. And really what it was a very powerful way for me to let go of resentment, for me to let go of energy that was stored inside of my psyche, inside of my body. But let me tell you, from doing this, I felt so free afterwards. And it's something that allows you to finally let go. Now, what if the relationship that you haven't let go of yet is the relationship that is blocking you from something new? What if the beliefs in scarcity that have been attached to you, that you have been attached to because of maybe they were given to you when you were a kid, what if that has been on autopilot and it's been attached to you, so therefore you continue to live in the pattern of it? What if in order for you to attract new situations in the unknown, you have to first off let go of something that is known? And what if this empty chair exercise helps you to complete the cycle? It helps you to finally let go of something or even someone you've been attached to. Now, this can be especially powerful for doing it in understanding the triad between mother, father, child. Because ultimately, growing up, our parents to us are the ultimate beings of connection that we have into this world. They're our first initial contact points to connection. So if there was resentment or blockages between us and mom or us and dad, we may find that there's blocks in certain areas of our life. We may find that we have maybe a certain mother wound. It affects relationship dynamics in our life because a lot of times feminine energy can represent relational dynamics. She's also the first relationship we have when we come to this world. And on the father side of it, that can represent purpose, abundance, boundaries, protection, which can also represent abundance of your purpose. So becoming aware of how you relate to these two energies can be a very powerful thing to do because it may affect other areas of your life. But what if you were to put in that chair, which this is obviously is a very intimate thing to do. However, putting in that chair certain people, family, like people in family where there's certain things that maybe went unsaid growing up, certain ways that maybe you felt that you didn't feel safe to say when you're growing up because you heard the saying of kids are meant to be seen and not heard. Maybe you weren't encouraged to express how you really felt. Well, what this allows you to do is to complete the cycle, to make whole the cycle of the things you didn't said, where there is literally blocks in the cycle of completion that then allow you to be free. And what if by being free, you then allow new unknown or literally by stepping into the unknown, you allow new things to come into your life. But it's almost like because there's breaks in certain parts of the cycle, there's a certain level of bandwidth that we are taking towards the past. So for example, the thing that you never expressed to dad or mom may be the thing that's in the background of your psyche, and then you keep attracting partners into your life that also reflect back a similar energy because you never actually expressed it. Like after I left the 17 years old, my dad divorced my ex-stepmom who was controlling and manipulative and narcissistic. I kept attracting controlling women into my life to reflect back that energy pattern. One would leave. I'd attract, like I had an ex-girlfriend that was very controlling and jealous, broke up with her. Then within a week, had a manager that was the same personality as my ex-stepmom. She was in my life for 5 years. And then I forgave my ex-stepmom when I went through my spiritual awakening in 2012, and then she left my life. That manager got fired within a week. And then there have been lesser versions of that. It just keeps getting less and less, but nonetheless, completing the cycle for me really was about learning the lesson of standing up to that energy and letting it go. It's almost like because I never got to complete the cycle between me and my ex-stepmom, who was controlling and manipulative, because when I was 17, I never had to talk to her again. It's like there was a forcing of certain conversations to happen where I had to stand up and assert my own boundaries and assert my own power and then not engage with a certain type of toxic energy through different people. Because the idea is that we attract people to reflect back to us the incomplete patterns of our past. So you might attract people, let's say, that are emotionally unavailable. And you may find yourself over and over again in relationships with emotionally unavailable people. Now, the thing to become aware of is maybe at a certain point you've normalized emotional unavailability because of the mother, father, child dynamic. Maybe one of those felt emotionally unavailable, and that feels safe And you may say, well, I don't want that. I want more. But what if you experiencing more than that would make you feel fearful, would make you feel uncomfortable because you weren't used to it? And the thing to realize as well, a lot of times this is a mirror. So if you're attracting emotionally unavailable people, there may be a part of you that's emotionally unavailable, which is sometimes hard to look at. This is something I've had to look at in myself, and it's not easy to look at. Because normally there can also be a story that someone else is the problem. Think of the mother, father, child dynamic. And if the story is mom or dad didn't come around, you may find yourself in relationship dynamics in the future where this person isn't doing the work. They're not coming around. So there's a projection of that same story. But really, that hasn't been completed yet. You didn't actually say or express to this other person what you never expressed, and therefore you keep energetic bandwidth inside of yourself, therefore blocking things from coming into your life. And when it comes to thinking about past relationships, they may also be reflecting back the ultimate relationship of the relationship with mom and dad. So a huge, powerful process in this empty chair analogy is that what you do is you get a chair and you put it in front of you. And what you do is you imagine that the person that you maybe feel there's unfinished business with, or you never actually express certain things. And here's the thing, if you don't express it, you'll find yourself subconsciously attracting people into your life that replay that dynamic so that you can express it. So ultimately, you're doing this to clean out your own energetic field. Because in your energetic field, if there's a withholding of information, you will attract people into your life that activate that part of your field. So by having this chair, what you can do, what I did is I talked to my mom, I talked to my dad, a couple other people from my past, and I dialogued and said the things that I had withheld holding back. Things I was afraid would hurt their feelings, so I held it in. I expressed how certain situations and certain things made me feel, and in a way, it was like the inner child part of myself was finally feeling seen and heard, was expressing himself. And many of us that had an inner child whose needs were not met, where they did not feel seen, heard, soothed, or nurtured growing up, that part of ourselves that held back is the part of ourselves that continues to attract people that reflect back the same way you were treated, the inner child was treated. Even though you may crave being seen, soothed, heard, and nurtured, you may find yourself only capacity able to attract people that treat you, the inner child, the same way. So what I got to do is I sat there and I brought through, and what I would do is I would open up the chair and I would say, I would imagine the person there and I would say, hello, mom, hello, dad, hello, this person. And then what I would do is I would talk about what I hadn't actually shared before, but say, when this happened, it made me feel this way. I wish you would have been here more. I wish we would have done this more. I wish you would have protected me in this situation. I wish that I would have learned this from you. And then there was also towards the end, what I would do is I would point out all the positive things. I'd say, thank you so much for this, by the way. And I remember all the good times as well. I remember this happening and the connection that we made at this point in our lives. And I went through this whole dynamic. And at the end, it was like thanking the energy dialogue and thanking the person even. It's almost like I'd imagine their higher self was there too. But at the end, I would say I'm letting go of this pattern now. That doesn't mean I'm letting go of my connection or the love that I have for my mom or my dad or anyone else. But I'm letting it go. I'm letting go of the attachment. I'm letting go of the unconscious energy. And then what I would do is I would then push in the chair, feel complete, and then open it back up to the next person. I literally did this for like 3 or 4 people yesterday that weren't actually here, but in the empty chair, I was able to express so much that I hadn't expressed that I felt so free afterwards. And not only that, I know it was powerful as well because the dreams that I had last night, so dreams are many times a reflection of certain energies we're learning in life. And if you've ever had a dream that continues to repeat itself, it's almost like it hasn't been made whole. And there's another part I'm going to share about this whole cycle of Gestalt therapy that's extremely powerful here in a moment. But last night, my dreams, it was like there's a certain loop in my dream where certain things happen. Like, for example, in one of my dreams, there's sometimes a energy dynamic where things aren't fair. For example, I'll be in a grocery store in my dream, and I'll be in a line, and someone will just cut me in line and go to the front. And I'd be like, what the heck? You just cut me. And sometimes, earlier on, I'd have a cycle of this dream, and I would just kind of let it happen. And then later on, like a couple months ago, I would then have a cycle, like a version of this dream, and then I would stand up and be like, no, push, basically like assert myself and get in front of, and then like call the person out, and then for cutting. And I know that this is a reflection of a belief in childhood that things aren't fair. Things weren't fair. I didn't have much of a childhood from 7 to 17 years old. It's not fair. Then years later, I worked in a 9-to-5 job with corporate politics. And that manager that was in my life for 4 years, we couldn't get fired because she was protected by HR, even though the things that she'd say and do were just incredibly mean, what she'd get away with, and like not appropriate. But guess what? Things weren't fair. That was the familiarized energy. So then in these dreams, things aren't fair. Well, last night, it was interesting. I was in a line, and there was a guy that was kind of doing something else. It didn't look like he was in line. And normally, sometimes I just wait. So in this dream, I just was like, oh, and I just walked around and was like, why am I waiting? I just walked around and went to the front. And then when I got in line and I was getting ready to go up to the front, the person kind of walked ahead of me. Whereas before, it was interesting. There were like phases of me realizing that you can be triggered by something and feel the need to like assert your power, be like, no, you did this wasn't fair that you did this. But last night in the dream, it wasn't like a passive energy of like, I should have fought for that spot in line. But when the person walked in front of me, the way I responded, I was way more nonchalant. I was like, whatever. So it's almost like there's a different level of power in the acceptance and surrender instead of, like this is making me small energy. But that dream to me was a symbol, and also a dream with someone from my past where it's been sometimes hard to set boundaries with certain people in my life because a feeling of guilt or responsibility, or not wanting them to, feeling responsible for their energy, really. Last night in a dream, I established boundaries with somebody. And in past, there'd be cycles of a dream or like repeating dreams where that wasn't even really an option. So I can tell there was a breakthrough even through the chair exercise just by the reflection of my own dreams, and how it's like my dreams have progressed to a new energetic dynamic. Instead of like me feeling like life's not fair, it's like realizing that that's also kind of like the kink in my energy field about that, where I'm like, now, things aren't fair, and then it's like I keep attracting things that aren't fair because I'm really worried that things aren't fair. Instead of just like letting it be and then realizing I can adjust and allow things to come in. It's almost like attachments and aversions. If you have like a really big rule that something doesn't happen, you're probably having that active in your field, and you'll probably attract things that reflect back the thing you don't want. So anyways, when it comes to the cycles of the Gestalt therapy, of what I'm talking about, like the wholeness, there's this cycle where it has to do with sensation, and then acknowledgement, and then mobilization, and then action, and then satisfaction, and then withdrawal, and then the fertile void is what it's called. And the idea is at a certain point in this cycle, so for example, the analogy that's normally used is getting a glass of water. So first off, you become aware of the sensation, I want a glass of water. So you acknowledge that you have a desire for water. So then what you do is you mobilize yourself by walking over to the cupboard, you take action, and you get the cup, you fill it up with water. Oh, there's contact, that's one of the points as well. So then what happens is you take the action, and then you have the contact, and you put the water to your lips, and you drink it. And then after you drink it, you're satisfied, which is a level. And then you withdraw because you don't have the desire anymore. And then you have the fertile void, which is the space from which you can have a new desire, or a new need, or a new want. But the idea is that at a certain point in our past, there may be certain times or certain blocks in this. And that those blocks may have been with certain relationships and certain people. And what ends up happening is unless we become aware of those blocks, then, or we heal it by expressing how we really felt, we continue to attract people and situations into our life to reflect that block back, because it's like subconsciously we want to heal the block. So we attract people to reflect that back until we heal it. So a huge part of this process with this empty chair is that you are able to dialogue with different aspects of yourself and even other people. Now think about different aspects of yourself. Imagine in that empty chair you put the inner critic, and you express to the inner critic how you really feel. Or you put in your, you dialogue with your inner child. It's a more loving contact in relationship. And by the way, you can also ask for feedback. So you could, like, how's my inner child feeling? And then you listen to your inner child. You can listen to someone else to understand their perspective on something. And this is using the power of your imagination. Because ultimately, we're all connected anyways. So the information is in the field. You are connected to other people's quote-unquote higher selves. So you're able to create a lot of healing through this simple metaphor of the empty chair. But doing this exercise last night had a profound effect on how I felt more free afterwards, how I felt more connected afterwards, the dreams that I had last night as a reflection of it. And I believe that what you can begin doing is understanding that you don't have to wait to heal. You can also, by the way, talk to these specific people. I've done that before as well, where I talk to certain people in my family. But there's certain things that you maybe feel like maybe people aren't ready to hear, or so you don't, or you want to protect them in some way, so there could be a breakthrough in like being able to express it, but also maybe an acknowledgement that some people are just kind of where they're at. Not in a judgmental way, like, you're so low vibe, but you kind of tell where this could be maybe a powerful exercise for you to do, because it doesn't require, like, I'm not going to talk to certain people from my past I'm not going to sit down and have a conversation with. Certain narcissistic people, it's not really going to be getting through to them. It's going to be like an argument that you don't necessarily want to have. So something I'm going to be doing as well, if you want to learn how to really heal from the inside out, a lot of this has to do with becoming aware of shame and reconnecting, re-healing the belief you have about your own sense of worthiness, but attuning to the energy of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father so that you complete the cycle of that mother-father-child dynamic. Now, this is something we will be doing in High Vibe Tribe, which is a completely free community you can join. There's also High Vibe 101, where I'm going to be putting this exercise inside of that course, $1,000 course for free. You can join by clicking the link below. And then if you want to learn more, by the way, about this dynamic, about something called the Still Face Experiment, one of the most powerful videos I've made goes deeper into this inner core healing wholeness that I'm talking about. Is from a live event. Go ahead and watch this video right here.
So empaths, people that can feel other people's energy. This is both a superpower